So today we're going to make some bread, and the first thing you need is a very large bowl. Reason being, this recipe makes 3 loaves. So a big bowl is necessary for 10½ cups of flour and lots of other ingredients. First thing you want to do is level off 2 tablespoons of yeast, dry active yeast, and put it in the bowl and add a little bit of warm water to help it dissolve. Now you want to cook your cereal. So you want to cook the millet and the steel oats. Follow the directions to cook the steel oats. And as far as the millet goes, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And what I do is I cook a whole cup of it because I make 2 batches, but I will boil 2 cups of water. I'll add a cup of the millet. Once it comes to a boil, stir it up, and I'll turn it down. And I'll bring it to a really soft boil until all the water is absorbed. Sometimes I need to add a little bit more water, but it just depends. The 2-to-1 ratio works pretty good. Okay, so now that you have your cereals cooked, you want to bring those down to room temperature. You don't want to put them in your yeast hot or it'll kill the yeast. Next, you want to add almost all the ingredients with the exception of the 10½ cups of flour and the 4 cups of water. So I'm going to read those off to you. It doesn't matter which order you put them in, just get them in there and get it mixed up. So you want ½ cup of wheat germ, ½ cup of almond flour, a tablespoon of salt, which is optional. You want ½ cup of sunflower seeds, 1/4 cup of chia seeds, 3/4 cups of honey, and 3/4 cups of molasses. You should have a sticky, dark, gooey mixture at this point. It should be pretty wet. Stir that up really good, and now you can add your flour. So what I do is I add a little flour, a little water, I stir, a little flour, a little water, I stir, and I start with about 3 cups of flour. That works really well for me. If you try and do it all at once, it's going to be a big mess. So the goal is to get all the way to the end, get all the ingredients in there, making sure the consistency and the wetness is pretty much like you see in the video. You may or may not need all that flour up front. It just kind of depends on your elevation and where you live. So the main goal is to get it out onto a counter or a surface, a floured surface, so you can knead the dough for 5 minutes. I like to use the palms of my hands, pushing inwards and folding over and pushing inwards. So the whole idea of that is to release that gluten, to get it going, get it activated, and to get everything incorporated really well so there's no dry spots and everything's mixed in really well. Okay, so once you have your ball of dough, you want to wash out your bowl really well, dry it, put some oil in the bottom, some olive oil, and then put your ball in there, cover it with a dish towel, and let it rise for about 45 minutes to an hour until doubled. So it might take a little less depending on the temperature in your kitchen. Once that's done, you're going to punch it down, releasing the air, maybe let it rest a few minutes, and then divide it in 3 parts. We're going to make 3 loaves out of that. So I like to roll them out with a rolling pin and some flour in a rectangular shape that's about the width of my baking pan. Your baking pans need to be oiled also, so those loaves are ready to go in there. Okay, so once I roll it out into that rectangle, I fold into the center from each side, I pinch the top, I pinch the sides, I flip it over, and I kind of do a patting, pounding, tapping type of technique on it until I have the loaves the shape I want them and they're not sticking to the surface I'm rolling on. I lift them up, put them in the pans, and I make sure that they're patted even in there so that we get a nice even rise and a nice loaf of even cooked bread. Another thing that tapping and patting does is it releases any air pockets that may be in there so you don't have holes in your bread. So that's pretty important. Okay, so now you cover that with dish towel and you let that rise for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that, until it's just above the peak of the pan. At that point, you can get your oven ready at 375 degrees. You want to heat it up to 375 degrees. Once you are preheated there, you can put your loaves in there and let them cook for 40 minutes. The goal is to get the internal temperature to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you've reached 190 degrees, you are done. So anyway, I would put those on a cooling rack, let them cool a few minutes before cutting into them, because even though it's tempting, the whole loaf is going to come out better and slice better if it's cooled some. I think it's great bread. I hope you are encouraged to try it. And if you do, I would love to know what you think. Anyway, I appreciate you watching, taking the time to see this. I hope it encourages one of you out there, and you have a great day.